Today on America's Court with Judge Ross.
What is it that actually happens with a child that has autism?
So autism is a neurological disorder. Impacts three main areas: your speech and language, your ability to communicate and interact with others, and your ability to learn.
The whole purpose behind law is to right wrong. I want justice to be something that isn't this foreign concept.
Justice knows no boundaries. The truth will be heard. Fair, firm, compassionate. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. Letitia Shea is suing horse trainer Sean Moore in the amount of $3,720 for medical bills and a refund on services.
All rise. Remain standing and come to order. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Kevin Ross presiding.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated.
All parties been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Thomas. So, Ms. Shea, this is a pretty serious case. We have some fun here at America's Court, but I was really touched by your case. And you're suing Mr. Moore here in the amount of $3,720. And it's an issue involving your son. You may proceed.
Your Honor, I'm here because my son was severely injured while in this man's care, and he is standing behind a piece of paper to say that he's not responsible, and I will not have that, Your Honor.
So let's talk about your son. What's his name?
My son is Dennis.
Dennis.
His name is Dennis. Dennis is 5.
And you had Dennis participate in some sort of horse therapy that Mr. Moore is the owner of.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Moore, tell me about that therapy, sir.
Sure. So my name is Sean Moore. I run Critters Ranch, excuse me. I've been running this business for 8 years. So I am an equine assistive therapist.
And for those who don't know what that is, please explain.
Sure. So at the ranch, I facilitate equine assistive therapy. And so what happens there is basically we have our 20 or so clients that come throughout the week, maybe for 1 to 3 hour sessions. And they come basically and hang out with the horses and the crews that we have, all certified. All of our riding instructors are certified in CPR, first aid. We're all about safety there. So,
and the therapy with the horses is designed to do what?
Okay. So in the example of Ms. Shea's son, Dennis, he has autism.
Right.
And so what's great about working with horses is it's providing a therapy that a child won't recognize as a therapy. So working with horses is excellent, especially for someone with autism. Mm-hmm. Horses pick up on human behavior, and someone with autism will see the same behaviors reflected back from the horse onto themselves. So there's some sort of cognitive therapy that happens there.
And Ms. Shea, what made you decide to go to this particular location with your son, Dennis?
Well, my son was diagnosed when he was 2, and over the years we've tried different therapies, and they weren't working. So,
and when you say they weren't working, what do you mean?
Well, there are therapies that involve repetitive responses to real-life situations and real-life conversations, and he didn't seem to be responding to that.
Is this your only child?
Yes. So there was another thing we tried, and that wasn't working, and so...
We, meaning
my
you
husband,
and your husband?
My husband
okay.
and I, yes.
And any particular reason why he's not here today?
He's out of the country, actually, Your Honor.
I see. And how has it been for you dealing with a child that has autism?
Your Honor, it's really difficult. Since I really believed that this therapy would be the answer. And now my son is afraid of the horses, and I mean, I'll get to the rest of the lawsuit, but initially, it's really difficult, Your Honor, and all my hopes and dreams were wrapped up in this child, Your Honor. We traveled extensively, and I dreamed of having, you know, a son to do this with and to enjoy these experiences with, Your Honor, and I'm so limited now. I mean, I know that sounds horrible, but it's just, we all have our dreams for our children, Your Honor, and thank you. And when he was diagnosed, I was devastated. I really, really was. I wanted to find answers. No one seemed to take it seriously. My husband was in denial, and of course I looked at myself as well. Was it because we did in vitro? Was it because I was an older mom? I mean, was it because of my lifestyle choices perhaps when I was younger? I mean, who knows? We all had our, you know, the crazy 20s. You know, who knows, Your Honor? But in any case, this was the situation that we were in, and I had to deal with it. So the doctor recommended this kind of therapy, and he spoke so highly of the ranch. It's in Santa Ynez Valley.
Okay.
So I went, I looked online, they got great reviews, and it seemed like it would be it gave me a lot of hope that we could finally make some changes here and see some changes.
And Mr. Moore, do you pretty much deal exclusively with children of autism, or is it just any child can go to this particular facility?
Right, so for equine-assisted therapy, it actually branches out. A whole myriad of people can go through these therapies. We have people with autism, with anxiety. You get people with behavioral and abuse issues. People with PTSD can also profit or benefit from.
Is it just kids, or is it span the age?
People of all capabilities on all ages, but we're seeing a lot more. Most of the clientele at our ranch here is primarily children with autism.
Coming up on America's Court.
What is it that actually happens with a child that has autism?
So autism is a neurological disorder. Impacts three main areas: your speech and language, your ability to communicate and interact with others, and your ability to learn.
And later.
Here's my son trying his best to stay on this running wild horse, leg on top, holding onto the mane. His body is coming
And
out.
he's only, you said he's 5.
He's 5. He's trying to hang on, but he can't. The horse managed to get out, and he falls off the horse. You can hear the arm go snap.
Closed captioning provided by. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. We're back with the case of Letitia Shea, who is suing Sean Moore for negligence while watching her autistic son.
The reason that I was very torn with this case is because this is a sensitive issue as it relates to this explosion of cases involving autism, and families really struggling with this. And it's not something that I'm particularly well versed in. And so the beauty of being in this position is that if I feel I need support or insight from someone else, we have access to individuals who have that expertise. So Deputy Thomas, I'd like for you to bring out the court-appointed witness that I have invited to come to America's Court to give us some perspective.
Yes, sir.
If you can have that witness come in, please.
Yeah. If you can stand right there.
All right, so the parties who are a part of this suit, I want you to meet Miss Areva Martin. Miss Martin is an author and a nationally recognized expert on autism. She's an advocate. She's a Harvard-trained lawyer. And she also has written a book called The Everyday Advocate that speaks to this whole issue of the challenges of dealing with a child with autism, which she knows firsthand about because her son also has autism. So let me ask you this regarding this whole area of autism. What is it that actually happens with a child that has autism?
So autism is a neurological disorder. Impacts three main areas: your speech and language, your ability to communicate and interact with others, and your ability to learn.
Now, I understand that there's this whole issue of being on a spectrum.
Yes.
What is that?
So autism is considered a spectrum disorder. Mm-hmm. So some children you may see with autism and they look completely typical. So they have language, they have good communication skills, and then there are others who may have to be institutionalized because they never learned to speak. They have behaviors that make it difficult for them to be in the community. They may not even be able to be potty trained. So you may hear the terms used: mild, moderate, and severe.
Does it change as they get older? Does the spectrum shift? Or?
The age doesn't make as much of a difference as the therapies. So kids who are diagnosed early and get intensive therapies can make tremendous progress. I think it's important to note that there are a lot of support groups, there are a lot of nonprofit agencies and organizations that really provide support to parents like you and can really help you deal with the isolation and help you find centers and therapies that can help your son.
I just want to say to Ms. Martin, thank you so much. I have respected your work, and you have really kind of given me some additional things to think about. So, again, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Deputy Thomas, if you can escort her out.
Coming up on America's Court.
Here's my son trying his best to stay on this running wild horse, leg on top, holding onto the mane. His body is coming
And
out.
he's only, you said he's 5.
He's 5. He's trying to hang on, but he can't. The horse managed to get out, and he falls off the horse. you can hear the arm go snap.
Closed captioning provided by. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. We're back with the case of Letitia Shea, who is suing Sean Moore for negligence while watching her autistic son.
Dennis's experience with that first session, how would you describe it, Mr. Moore?
So it was great. So, like my niece, when she was diagnosed with autism, she fell in love with horses. My grandpa passed the horses on to me when he passed away. And so there was an instant connection with the horses. It was amazing. She has autism. Okay, and so I saw that with Dennis as well. There was an instant connection with the horse. So it was the first trial. So Dennis and I and the horse were together. And
so you had this period of time with Dennis where it looked as though the horse therapy was actually working.
Right. So, yeah, exactly.
And at some point, Ms. Shea comes to pick up the child, Dennis.
Right.
What happens at that point?
Okay. So the beginning
I can speak to that.
of the session, so I'm working with the
Let him
child.
finish. Yes.
The first 20 minutes, it's familiarizing Dennis with the scenario, with the scene, with the horse, with the animal. That itself builds trust,
Sure.
develops
Well,
self-esteem.
we've already established that you had a good session with him.
Okay.
Right? And then you come to pick him up.
Yes, sir.
And that's where things kind of go in a different direction. So let me hear from you, Ms. Shea.
Okay. Well, I arrived and I pulled up to the gate, and my dog had to go to the bathroom. He jumped out. I didn't have a chance to get the leash on him. My dog ran for the gate.
Yes.
Nudged it open, ran into the pen, and he's an Irish Wolfhound, Your Honor. Huge dog. So Duke runs inside.
The dog's name is Duke.
Pardon me?
The
dog's name is Duke,
Okay.
yes. Duke ran inside. I see my son go from elated and calm and peaceful and having a wonderful session to screaming, excited first to see his dog. But then the horse, Sean is right there. And it looks like Sean had control over the animal, over the horse. But then next thing I know, the horse runs off.
Spooked by
Spooked.
Duke.
The dog, I'm screaming. Now I'm screaming for Duke. Duke is running. Dennis is screaming. And so the horse takes off. And here's my son trying his best to stay on this running wild horse. Leg on top, holding onto the mane. His body is coming
And
out.
he's only, you said he's 5.
He's 5. He's trying to hang on, but he can't. The horse managed to get out, and he falls off the horse. You can hear the arm go snap. Now he's beyond inconsolable. And Sean is standing there he goes from shock to blaming me. He actually is blaming me for this happening.
Is that
He's
true?
telling me that I shouldn't have driven the car up to the fence. He's telling me that my dog shouldn't have run out. He is in charge of the horse.
So what Mr.
He
Shea
was
is
in
doing,
charge of my son.
she isn't talking about the violations of policy that she has done this day. So she was inquiring about my business and
That's
what kind of
ridiculous.
things that I do back when.
Your policy is ridiculous.
Okay.
What was you mean the policy in terms of her having the dog with her inside the car?
Right. So when someone comes to the ranch, we go over the do's and don'ts, especially since Mrs. Shea and I were going over the contract. We talk about the specific do's and don'ts at the top of the list, Your Honor, right here.
Let me see it. Let me see it.
Dogs, if they come, they need to be on leash, and at the visitor center. So we have the visitor center and then the barn. That was the first policy broken, dog off leash. Second, you cannot park by the ring, especially when things are in session. When we're in session with the children,
And
you cannot.
the ring, meaning close to where the horses were.
Exactly, where I am with the horse.
And is there
the
a
students.
separate parking lot somewhere
it's
else?
There is, yep.
Okay, why didn't you go and park in the parking lot?
If it's such a big deal, why is there even access to the ring, Your Honor? First of all, and why
Well,
was my car even
well,
able to
hold on
get
a minute.
anywhere near the
Hold
ring
on,
if it's such an
Ms.
issue
Shea.
for the dogs,
It
for the
says
horses?
here on
I
the
mean.
agreement that you must park in the parking lot. It says that here on the contract.
Coming up on America's Court.
Somebody else decides I'm going to break the rule as well. I'm going to drive over here, even though I'm told not to get into the parking lot. I'm going to bring my Great Dane with me, and then Dennis falls as a result. Would you look to that parent and say, well, why would you do that, given that these are the rules and this is what you've done to my son?
Closed captioning provided by. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. We're back with the case of Letitia Shea, who is suing Sean Moore for negligence while watching her autistic son.
Now, here's what's happening. I'm pointing out something that's very clear on this contract. Put the dog on a leash, which is not unreasonable given that there's horses. Park away from where the horses are, And if you're dealing with other children with special needs and other people that have anxiety and other issues, and this is your first time coming, at a minimum, you would be, okay, well, let me make sure I'm following the rules, because obviously these rules are here for a reason.
Those rules are there to protect their horses, Your Honor. That's his investment. He doesn't care about my son. He cares about those horses because those horses make him money, Your Honor. The gate is there for the horse so the horse doesn't run out, and so that the horse doesn't run out.
Somebody
That's an
else
insult to me and
who
my business.
doesn't have your situation.
Well, you hurt my son.
Ma'am, look at me. Somebody else decides I'm going to break the rule as well. I'm going to drive over here, even though I'm told not to get into the parking lot. I'm going to bring my Great Dane with me, and that Great Dane doesn't know your son Dennis and does the same thing, and then Dennis falls as a result. Would you look to that parent and say, well, why would you do that, given that these are the rules and this is what you've done to my son?
That dog is big.
I want you to think about that.
Convertible.
Because basically what we have here is you're saying that you're entitled to be compensated because you don't want to take him back there. Is it that you don't want to take him back, or Dennis doesn't want to go, or you won't let her? What's the deal?
That was my only hope now. What am I supposed to do now? That was the last hope for us, the equine therapy, the horses, and now he doesn't even want to be around the horses.
So you want your money back from the signing the contract.
This lawsuit could be for
so much more than this. Did you say she couldn't come back? Is that what's going on?
That's not at all what I said. I would have refunded her the appropriate amount for that lesson, $500. But
so
I
you
want
say,
all of the money
I'll
back.
give her
I
back
will not be back there.
$1,500, but not completely $2,000 because we actually had a session.
How could we return to that place now?
Judge Ross's verdict when America's Court returns. You're watching America's Court with Judge Ross. This is America's Court with Judge Ross.
I think in this instance, based on the evidence and the testimony before this court, the gavel has to come down in favor of the defendant.
Your Honor.
Because when I look at the series of events, it was all the things that happened before to lead to the horse. It was you, and I know you are dealing with some stuff I couldn't even imagine. I know that. My job is to uphold the law. And so when I look at someone who drives up to horses, which that alone could have spooked the horse, and all these things, and you're just trying to make it work, it still doesn't negate the role that you played in Dennis's injuries. Your matter's dismissed. Case closed.
All rise.
Judge Ross has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim is denied.
This man, Mr. Moore, he took options from me. Now what am I going to do?
If he wants to come back and join us, that'd be totally great. This therapy works for so many kids, and it still can work for Dennis.
Follow America's Court on Facebook and Twitter. This has been a production of Entertainment Studio.